Okay, so this question was it was submitted a little while ago, but now, and we didn't get a chance to get to it last week, but it's even more, I think, relevant now. Great podcast. You guys are truly amazing and way more nationally recognized than most people think. Oh, okay. I love it. On to my question. The Pac-12 is bad this year. We all know that. I was trying to think of the last time it was truly good. I go back to 2011 to 2014 when UCLA beat USC and Arizona and Anu Solomon were great. Then I think of 2016 and Sam Darnold and USC. With all that is, and for that matter, isn't happening at USC right now, sometimes I think about possible next head coaches. And one scenario that keeps coming to mind, wouldn't it be ironic if James Franklin went to USC to replace Clay Helton, the team and coach that beat him in Penn State in the 2017 Rose Bowl, one of the greatest iterations of the game ever, and a great college football game in general? Not a bad move, just a funny one. If he went to USC, however, do you think that Luke Fickell would go and take over at Penn State? Why or why not for Luke Fickell at Penn State? And if no, who would your top three to be to take over at Penn State and why? Plus, are there any other coaches on a hot seat that might not get fired until after the regular season besides LSU and Virginia Tech? Well, got that one. Any ones that we need to look out for? Keep it up, guys. Go Bucks and fight on. So there's a couple of different pieces that, number one, who would take over for James Franklin if James Franklin left, and then what are some of the other jobs in addition to our LSU, USC, Washington State at the Power 5 level to keep an eye on?
I don't know if Luke Fickell would take the Penn State job, but I think he'd be more likely to take it than he would either USC or LSU.
You don't think it's such an automatic fit? Like, what would you, if you're Luke Fickell, you were his agent,
Luke's
what
choosy,
would you
man.
tell him? Do you think he's waiting on? Like, do you think
I would tell him take the job.
I would tell him
Yeah,
take the
me
job
too.
for sure. But I mean, I think for the impression that I've gotten is obviously he wants to stay in the Midwest. Like that's where he spent his entire coaching career. He's mentioned like the reason he hasn't left Cincinnati already for a couple Power 5 gigs in the Midwest is because he doesn't want to uproot his family right now. So I think that says there are only a few jobs he's going to be leaving Cincinnati for. We've talked, Michigan, Ohio State, Notre Dame, and I think Penn State is in that category of jobs. It's just I don't know if that's the one he wants or if that's the one he thinks he can get or that's the one he wants to wait for. I think that he's pretty happy at Cincinnati. I think that, we'll see how things go for the rest of this year, but Cincinnati's going to be joining the Big 12. But at the same time, when they do join the Big 12, he might want to be out of there before then because that's kind of going to take him out of his specialty area in the Midwest as far as recruiting.
All right. So other names, if we have to come up with some, I actually think Jeff Hafley would kill it there.
Yeah, that's a great call.
I've been really impressed with what Hafley's done. I think the injury to Djokovic, the quarterback there, is probably going to stifle some of his hype. But before then, they were on pace to easily win 8-9 ball games. They've shown some defensive improvement at Boston College. Look at what has happened to Ohio State's defense since he left there. Hint, not good things. I think, honestly, the other side of his operation that I'm pretty impressed with is that I do track this, and I'm working on a bigger feature for this, but I'll give you a little spoiler. Teams that do a really good job identifying talent early that they don't sign, but that later goes on to sign with like the Georgias or the Bamas, right? Boston College is a really good early identification of guys. And they're not just doing the thing where they shotgun a million offers out, right? So like of course they offered you early because they offered everybody early. Like they're still selective, but their early offers are good. That shows me he can scout and not just star chase. And, he's very much on guys that are later rising up. He has NFL experience. I think that would make a lot of sense. And I would probably take a look at Matt Campbell. He's a guy who I don't think he's a fit at like LSU or USC personally, but that's still pretty Midwestern. So I think Matt Campbell does a good job.
He'd be great at Penn State. I think Fickell or Campbell, you'd be just, doing jumping jacks because you're excited.
Penn State fan, right?
Yeah, God, yeah, you should be.
Yeah.
How deep does that list go? Like, where does it drop off to where all of a sudden Penn State fans start to say, if we reach this point, I'm not going to be happy?
John Donovan.
Yes.
Ricky Ronnie. Probably not.
Yeah, probably not. Don't think he's ready for that gig. But I think going that true, we mentioned Joe Moorhead at Washington State. I think Joe Moorhead would probably be acceptable to the fan base. I don't know if he'd be anybody's top choice, but What about like a Dave Clawson?
Yeah.
Or a Dave Doran?
Yeah.
Do you think Dave Doran, personality wise, would be interesting up there? I think Dave Clawson could certainly work.
Yeah.
With Moorhead, if Pitt's season had gone south after they lost to Western, I think Moorhead was an absolute shoe-in for the Pitt job. You know, he's a Pittsburgh guy. They actually can score some points. There's a lot of stuff that fits there. But since Narduzzi's turned it around, I don't think they're going to fire Narduzzi at this point. Like, they actually could win the ACC.
I didn't know. Was Narduzzi on a hot seat?
Yeah,
I think so. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. If things had started to go south, yeah.
Interesting.
Like, so I guess that's not being on a hot seat. That's if they
Yeah.
had continued to look like crap after they lost to Western, then I think a move could have been made.
And you know who else? I mean, I don't know what the odds of them getting him are, but if I was Penn State, I would strongly consider doing, at least taking a run at. And we didn't mention him for the LSU job, and maybe LSU should do the same. Although I don't think he's a sexy enough name. If I'm Penn State and my job comes open, I'd take a run at Mark Stoops.
Yeah.
There was another question in the mailbag, just made the cutting room floor, that said, what is it going to take for Mark Stoops to leave Kentucky? And I think it was asked by a Kentucky fan that was like, hopefully we can keep him type question. Like, what job should I be afraid of right now? Like,
I mean, Kentucky's an SEC gig, so it's attractive, but Penn State traditionally is a place where you can win a national title at, and Kentucky isn't.
And like maybe Miami. Obviously, Mark was the secondary coach there under Butch, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's recruited South Florida pretty well in his history. But I think the only thing that gets Mark Stoops out of Kentucky is if Kentucky all of a sudden changes his expectations. Right now, Kentucky's like, we're a basketball school. Anytime you provide us with a watchable product in the basketball offseason, we are really happy. We want to fill our stadium up. Our fans don't expect anything big. Just get us to a bowl game. Don't embarrass us. Give us something to distract us in the basketball offseason. And every time you do, we're going to give you an automatic raise, an automatic 1-year guaranteed extension on that deal, which he hits like every year and will hit again this year. That's why he's going to be signed through 2029, right? Like, that's the best contract in sports, because it's like, hey, this is not an easy thing historically, but it's achievable, and we're going to reward you for consistently being good.
Do you want to come to Illinois, Mark Stoops?
hey, that's all I want. That trigger to get is it 7 wins?
7 wins, including a bowl game. Yeah. So like, he can go 6
he
and
could be 6-6
yes,
and
sir.
show up to play the third or fourth best team from another conference. And if you get that dub, then
Kentucky plays hard in those bowls. You notice that, right?
I know.
Like,
Kentucky always cares so much more about those. It's probably because Mark Stoops knows what's on the line.
And if he wins 10, it's an automatic 2-year extension.
Goodness gracious.
Which he's done, I think, 1 time.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, as a University of North Carolina graduate, I can appreciate some 7-5, 8-4 football, baby.
Hell yeah.
That's all you want to do.
That's all I've ever wanted.
Get me to Late Night with Roy, and we'll be gravy.